Hey there, clan, and welcome to Warriors Non-Gaming Geeky Zone, where I talk about something that is non-gaming that's still very geeky. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the newest Marvel Netflix TV series, the one, the only, Jessica Jones. Without further ado, let's dive into this, shall we? Now, of course, before I start the video, I will say I'm going to do my best to avoid spoilers for the TV series for those who may not have seen it, and actually using this video as maybe just a quick thoughts. Because there was, when I did my Daredevil one, there were a couple of people who did message me and said they end up checking out the series at my recommendation. So I will do my best to avoid spoilers for the majority of this video, but I do have to talk about the ending of the series. I will say when I'm going to talk about that, or I'll put something on the thing that says big, mega, super duper epic spoilers. So, firstly, I have to give my thoughts on, if you've never heard of Jessica Jones, the series on Netflix, it's the newest one from the same creators or similar creating team as Daredevil. I don't think it's, I think it's from the same creative team, but they are like separate creative teams. You know what I mean? And it's about the character of Jessica Jones, who I don't know that much about in the comics, unfortunately. All I know is that she is a superhero, she is strong, she has worked with Luke Cage a few times, and she is a relatively popular character, not extremely popular from what I've heard, which seems to be the case for most of these Netflix TV series, but I do not know that much about this character. In fact, this is pretty much my first introduction to the character with the TV series, so if there are any fans of the comic book who know the character extremely well, do understand that this is my first interpretation and experience with the character. And it is basically, in a nutshell, a detective series, because Jessica Jones is a private eye, a private investigator, or a PI if you want. And that is something I think I've noticed a lot about the Marvel TV series on the tail, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daredevil, and Netflix, and of Jessica Jones now, and most likely Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Defenders when they eventually come out, is that the creators of this team aren't making superhero shows. They are making a themed show, like Jessica Jones, a detective show, with superhero elements. That's something that I think the Marvel shows have done exceptionally well, is that they create a show around a premise but just have superheroes in it. They did the exact same with Daredevil, where they had a lawyer show, a show about the law, about a lawyer and a bit of a detective in the way of that, but it had superpowers. That's the way they did it, and they've done this exact same thing with Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones is a private investigator, and the majority of the thing is a private investigator, is a detective show. It's like an LA noir kind of show, with Jessica Jones taking cases and then eventually focusing around her own case of the character of the Purple Man, or Kilgrave if he's known, which is basically we're trying to figure out about this character of Kilgrave, who Jessica Jones has history with. And it does it really well. I would definitely say I recommend this show. I really, really did enjoy it. The acting is very well done. It's this exact same thing with Daredevil. The acting for the majority of the actors in it, the main cast and most of the side cast, is exceptionally well done. These teams seem to get the good actors, including, of course, David Tennant, who plays the main antagonist of the series, the villain, known as Kilgrave, whose power is basically mind control. Well, not really mind control, more of suggestion. Basically the D&D term of, he's casting the suggestion spell on you and you have to do what he says. That's his power. So just think of all the evil things you could do with that power. He does them. I'm not kidding, but I'll get to that in a moment. But I actually really enjoyed this. And as an introduction to the character of Jessica Jones, I really liked it. I especially like the actress whose name I can never remember, who plays Jessica Jones. She's been in a lot of stuff, a couple of comedy series. Most people will probably recognise her from Breaking Bad, where she played Jesse's former junkie girlfriend, who ended up becoming a junkie again, but that's beside the point. But I really liked her. I actually thought she did an exceptional job as the character of Jessica Jones, as this character who has been through probably one of the darkest moments in her life with the character of Kilgrave, because the past, we're pretty much told from the first episode, so this isn't really a spoiler, is that she was mind controlled for Kilgrave for an extended period of time, and he's obsessed. He was obsessed with her, basically. And you can imagine what he made her do. He made her do some very dark and despicable things, and the show does not shy away from it, including the topic of rape. what Kilgrave did to Jessica was rape. And Kilgrave has done it to many other women as well. But with Jessica, we get it from her perspective, is that he forced her to do some despicable things, including having sex with her without her consent. The show does not shy away from this. This is something very dark, very deep, very dark basically. And the show does not shy away from it. It knows that this show is going to deal with dark subjects, with a character like Kilgrave who can control minds. So yeah, it doesn't shy away from it. It just flat out gets right to it, and I absolutely loved it for that, because it approached it very well. It's very hard to approach a subject like rape with kind of a in any way, basically, because it is such a dark subject, whether it be the rape of a woman or the rape of a man, it doesn't really matter. The show approaches it very well and handles it with care, and it does show Jessica in a vulnerable state in some instances, but also a strong state. I have to say this as well, I really do appreciate the fact that this show has two female characters in it, the character of Jessica Jones and her adopted stepsister, her stepsister. Jessica Jones was adopted after her parents died, whose name I cannot remember, but I believe her superhero name, she does become a superhero at one point in the comic books, is Hellcat, and they are leading towards that in the series, but I won't spoil how it leads up to that. But they approach these two talking to each other like they're just normal people. They don't approach it like two women having, like, most times whenever you have shows like this, the women end up arguing over men, or arguing over, let's face it, the stereotypical women stuff. They don't hear. They talk about life, they talk about each other, they talk about the dark things, they talk about Kilgrave, they talk about various other things, and also Jessica Jones' adopted stepsister. I'm just going to call Hellcat because I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. I do apologise for that. And the fact that that Hellcat has gone through some dark times, including an abusive mother, and also some other dark stuff as well. And it's kind of, the way they approach it is very well done, and the chemistry between Jessica Jones and Hellcat is absolutely exceptional, and the two actors really do mesh quite well. Of course, I have to talk also about Luke Cage, who is in the series. We do get introduced to him, and him and Jessica Jones have a bit of a past. I won't spoil it for anyone, of course, but it's kind of interesting what they do with that, is the fact that they introduce Luke Cage with his powers relatively early on in the series, which they did a good job as. I don't know too much about the Luke Cage character, but I like the way he was portrayed in this episode, in this series. Did a really good job. In fact, every character in this show is exceptional. That being said, there is one character in particular I have to talk about, and that is, of course, Kilgrave, played by David frickin' Tennant. Now, for those who don't know, I'm a big David Tennant fan. He was not my first Doctor, but the Doctor who got me into Doctor Who. My first Doctor, of course, was Christopher Eccleston, who I still think is a great Doctor, but David Tennant was the first Doctor that got me hooked on Doctor Who, so I consider him my Doctor. So it's very difficult and very jarring to see David Tennant, who has played the hero for so many seasons of Doctor Who, go to this character who is the complete freaking opposite of any type of hero. Like, Kilgrave as a character is one of the most despicable and evil characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He has the power to mind control people, and he does some despicable stuff in this series with that power, which I won't spoil for anyone the stuff that he does, but just imagine if you had that. Just imagine if you gave this power to a serial killer with no morale whatsoever. No morale, has no inclination of regret or anything, whatever he says. Just think of that, and that's pretty much what Kilgrave does. As I already mentioned, what he did to Jessica. He does some despicable stuff in this series, and the thing is, though, David Tennant is so charismatic. That's something that David Tennant has in spades. That you actually kind of go like, you're so evil, but you're so charismatic at the same time. That's something that I think the Marvel Cinematic has done really well, is that the villains, for the most part, not all of them, but most of them, at least the ones that are memorable, you actually have, like literally ooze charisma, like Loki, for example. But Kilgrave is on another level compared to Loki. I think Kilgrave is probably my favourite villain of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, just because of mainly because of David Tennant's performance. He does such an exceptional job as his villain that you really grow to hate this character, but at the same time you're also, I love to hate you. He does it so well that I'm very happy that he got the part, because it just shows the range that David Tennant has, going from you know, people have seen him as the Doctor, the hero of heroes, saver of time, to Kilgrave, one of the most darkest and despicable characters in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that should say a lot. So David Tennant knocks it out the freaking park with this, and he is probably the standout from this series in my opinion. Now, I really cannot talk about the series without going into spoilers. I'm not going to talk too many spoilers. I'm mostly going to talk about the ending and also some of the stuff about Kilgrave. But that being said, if you want to know if this show's worth checking out, I would say hell yes. This is a highly recommended show that I would recommend. If you've watched Daredevil, you will like Jessica Jones. I think that this is done in exceptional well. It's an adult TV series, so like Daredevil, I would not recommend this. If you're a parent, my advice to you is watch it first before you let your kiddies watch it, because it does approach some very dark subjects, and also it is very adult. Like, I mean, not Game of Thrones level of adult, but still adult. This is something I've really loved about the Netflix TV series, is that they are adult orientated. They are not made for children. They are made for older generations, adults, late teenagers. It approaches some very dark subjects, as it says, like rape, mind control, PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and various other stuff that I would not recommend letting your children watch. But at the same time, it's up to your own discretion, and you as a parent makes that choice. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I cannot recommend it enough. If you haven't checked it out yet, I definitely recommend it. I mean, even if you don't have Netflix, just get the month free and then cancel it. I literally marathoned it, and I've watched a couple episodes more than once. But that being said, I highly recommend it, and I would suggest that if you haven't checked it out yet, at least give it a shot. At least watch the first couple of episodes and watch it on Netflix, because it is an exceptional show. And I think probably, I don't know if it's better than Daredevil, but it's definitely on the same level as Daredevil, because I really like Daredevil. That being said, spoiler alert. Click off this video now if you don't want spoilers. Okay? Now I'm going to dive right into freaking Kilgrave, because Kilgrave in this one is freaking despicable. But David Tennant does an exceptional job with the charisma, especially with some of the stuff that he does in this series, like making a man freaking cut his own. Some of the stuff that he makes people do in this series is dark, and it really emphasizes his villainness. And also the fact that he does not perceive himself as the villain. As it says, he talks to Jessica later in the season. He talks about how he does not view himself as doing the wrong. He even talks to Jessica about it later in the season, that he didn't rape her. She wanted it. He merely suggested it. Which is something that just, he has no morale. He has no morale whatsoever. Even when Jessica Jones tries to lead him into the right way, she knows that that's not going to work, and does eventually trick him. That's something I really did like about Jessica, is that she was smart in this series. She knew how to play Kilgrave's game in a way that was very well done, very well. Like, as there's one scene in particular is that she tells that Kilgrave, after he escapes from after being captured, tells Hellcat, whose name I can't remember, to apologise, to put a bullet in her head. And luckily enough, the gun doesn't work that she has in her hand, but Jessica Jones basically takes a bullet and stuffs it in her mouth and says, "There's a bullet in your head." It's all about context. It's all about his word choice. That's what Kilgrave actually does say at some point, is the fact that he talks about he has to choose his words carefully. Because, as David... This one made me laugh, even though I could just like, that man must have suffered. Kilgrave states that he once told a man to go and screw himself. Just imagine what that could do. But yeah, it's just David Tennant just does such an exceptional job, especially later on in the season when it introduces his backstory of the fact that from his point of view, his parents tortured him because his parents basically took stuff from basically took spinal fluid and did experiments on him. And from the first introduction, we're told that they basically experimented on him, and that's how Kilgrave was created. And then we find out later on in the season that it turns out Kilgrave was actually born with a rare genetic neural disease, that his parents were actually trying to cure him, and actually did cure him and created a cure for a disease. But their side effect was the fact that he gained his powers of suggestion, that he could make people do stuff. And it turns out just imagine giving that power to a child with a temper tantrum. Apparently the parents tried their best to survive with it, but they couldn't. They eventually just ran away because Kilgrave made them do some despicable stuff, like burning his mother's face with an iron. He merely just suggested it. So Kilgrave tries to make you feel sympathetic for him, and in a way they do. It does work sometimes, but at the same time you're just like, dude, you've been through some dark fucking shit. We've all been through some dark shit in our fucking lives. We all didn't turn into serial killing psychopaths. But Kilgrave doesn't see himself as a serial killer. He's like, I've never killed a person in my life. He merely suggests that they killed themselves. It is like no morality whatsoever. So Kilgrave it's mostly down to David Tennant's charisma that he does it so well. So it's mostly down to David Tennant's charisma that they did such a great job with this villain. You won't like him. I never liked. I hated him. I hated him with fire passion, I wanted him dead throughout the entire season because I knew that someone with this power could not be trusted, and that was something that I think was very well done with David Tennant's part, and especially towards the end of the season when he's amplifying his powers and he eventually takes control of Luke Cage, and he basically toys with Jessica. Throughout the scene, he just wants Jessica to be with him because Jessica is immune to his power, and Jessica Jones is the one thing he can't have, so he wants it. It's about obsession. Jessica is immune to his powers, so he wants her. And he wants her to choose to want her. That's what I love about it. It's purely about obsession. And it ends up being Kilgrave's downfall, which comes to the end of the season when, spoiler alert if you're still watching, they kill him off. Jessica Jones snaps his freaking neck. And the way she does it is so very well done. Kilgrave has been using his father, who he kept alive, to amplify his powers, basically. And now he can manipulate people over the phone. He can manipulate people over a TV screen. He basically, his powers have been amplified and turned to like 20. And Jessica uses that to play with him because he only does this because of one thing. He wants Jessica. He wants to control her again. So she gives him what he wants. She basically acts like his powers are working on her. She smiles, and he eventually he falls for it. And Jessica does an exceptional job, but she tricks him. And he's like, I finally have you. And then she grabs him by the throat and snaps his neck. And I'm just like, okay, Jessica. Here's the thing. I am both disappointed and glad. One, disappointed because no, not David Tennant. He was the best part of the show. But at the same time, I'm glad, like, she kind of made the right call. Because, let's face it, with someone with Kilgrave's powers, you can't put him in prison. You can't. Especially the fact that by the end of the season, his powers are on, like, a completely different level now. You couldn't put him in a prison. Because he would just talk his way out of it. He would be gone in, like, a day. And that's something I think is very well, what Jessica Jones does very well. But at the same time, I'm disappointed, as I said, because David Tennant was so charismatic, and I kind of... That's something that I don't like about some superhero movies or even TV series to an extent, is the amount of times they just kill off the villain. I don't like that because, for one thing, David Tennant was exceptional in this, and I want to see him back as Kilgrave just because of how evil he was and how charismatic he was at the same time. But at the same time, I understand why they had to kill him off, because there's no way they could have freaking put him in any kind of cell. Other than that, I think that's pretty much all I have to say on that, because there are other aspects I could talk about, like Luke Cage's relationship with Jessica, but I only really wanted to talk about the ending, because that was the best part in my opinion. But I love this series. I really do recommend it. As I said, if you've stuck around here, I really do recommend it, even if you know the ending. It does such an exceptional job. I absolutely love the series. There was tons of stuff I haven't spoiled for the entire series. If you haven't already, the ending is just mwah, I loved it, but at the same time I'm disappointed. Other than that, I think that's pretty much everything I've got to say on the fact. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I'm ScottishWarren92. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like these and continue supporting my channel, feel free to click that subscribe button. Other than that, I'll see you all later. Ciao for now. Mwah.